Hey there, Steve Johnson, Mentor 555, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia. While in Austin, I had a chance to sit down with a special cat, Bob Roberts with Stewart Title. This guy is their #1 producer, coast to coast, across all landscapes. This guy is special. His backstory is special. He's sharing his wisdom with us today. He shared some things with me I had no idea about his past. So sit back, kick back, enjoy today's show, and as always, if you like what you see, hit the like button, share your comments. We want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe to our show. We appreciate you. Mr. Bob Roberts, welcome to Mentor 555.
Glad to be here, Steve.
Throw some skin on there for me, brother.
Absolutely, baby.
Yeah. We've been looking forward to this for a while, and I know that when we first visited about the podcast, there was like zero apprehension for me as to who was going to be on my show. You know, one of my first few shows, and so I wanted to have the man, the myth, the legend. He couldn't make it, but
no doubt.
But I knew that you could. But man, we're going to have fun today, and for our guests and our viewers, you are one of the absolute legends in the world of biz dev for the title industry. You've been with Stewart Title for what, 18 years? Is that right?
That's right.
Right. Okay. And does it feel like that you have been in it 18 years? Does it feel more like 18 minutes, 18 months? What does it feel like working for the same company for that long, especially when people are nipping at your heels to try to get you to go to these other title providers?
Yeah. First of all, the legend part. We have to. Hopefully, you'll listen to my side of the story, as far as that legend part.
Right.
But as far as your question, I think really probably more like 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so much fun. What I do. I mean, is it really work?
Yeah.
I really don't see it as work. I see it as fun.
Yeah.
And so, and I do have people that continually nip at me.
Yeah.
To try to take me to somewhere else. But the fact of the matter is that over the last 18 years, it's been pretty good so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Stewart Title has been around since 1893 in their New York Stock Exchange.
So that was just
company.
a couple years before you were born, right?
Three.
3
years
is that
before
right?
I was
Okay.
born. Yeah. So I wasn't there the whole time.
Okay.
I was there just most of the time.
Okay. So you didn't, it's not 18 years necessarily consecutively. Like you started there in the late 1800s? Or
Late 1800s.
Is that where the 18 comes from? Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
That's back when I actually had hair. Back then. Yeah. So
That might have been the 1700s.
1769. Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's cool. And, I want to talk about, you've been in Austin since the early 80s because you went to the University of Texas.
Correct.
Which a lot of people do. They come here. You grew up in Houston, right?
Right.
Okay. So like a lot of my friends, they come to Austin. They want to go to school here. They end up, and they try to figure out a way to stay here. Mm-hmm. That's not an easy task. Especially in today's world, sticking with the same company for as long as you have, especially with all the technology that these younger folks that are coming up. At the time, whenever you got out of college in 81?
81.
Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What was in your head? Not what was on your head. You probably had some hair on that beautiful scalp.
Just barely.
Yeah. But walk me through just quickly from 81 to Stewart Title. What were you doing prior to getting into the industry?
Okay, great. I got out in 1981, and everybody that I knew was going to Houston or Dallas because there were no jobs available in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And so I got a job.
And people that that are moving here by the truckloads, they would find that hard to believe.
It was the exact opposite. Everybody was leaving by the truckloads. As soon as they got out of school, they left to where the jobs were.
Yeah.
I mean, people followed the jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I went down to the bank called Texas Commerce Bank.
Okay, I remember that one.
Which eventually has rolled up to Chase now, J.P. Morgan Chase. And got a job there, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're so lucky to be able to stay in Austin." But fact of the matter is, I was the only one that I knew, saving except for my girlfriend, who later turned into my spousal unit. And so
your spousal unit, okay, I like that.
Yeah, so that was probably one of the reasons why I decided to stay in Austin. Obviously, because she was here and she still had a year left.
Yeah,
and so. I was lucky to do that, but everybody was gone. So I worked at Texas Commerce Bank.
Okay.
And
So you were a banker?
I was a banker.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
How
I was a
dare
banker.
you?
I was like you. I was like a
Okay,
mortgage
well,
guy.
you
Well,
are
I
like
was-
me.
Yeah, someone except without hair.
Yeah, there you go.
So, and I really would appreciate it if from here on you would just address me as forehead enhanced.
Forehead and
enhanced instead
enhanced.
of bald.
Okay, forehead.
I'm a little sensitive
Well,
about the bald.
I wouldn't be the first to say you have a pronounced forehead.
Yes.
So I mean, if you're not gonna, if you're gonna be follically challenged, why not just push it forward?
Well,
right? So lean in on this show, okay?
And I've leaned in. In fact, I walk, because I'm aerodynamic.
Yeah,
I mean, I walk so much faster now.
You make a great swimmer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, look at me.
you could
built like
probably
Phelps.
swim in the women's Olympics.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you just
that's
have to
all.
make a few different, enhancements. Otherwise,
Are we really going to go there?
That's a different show. We can can go there.
Why
Yeah.
not? Yeah. So I got out. I went to Texas Commerce Bank, and then I ended up at a company called Windsor Savings.
Okay.
And Windsor Savings was a company founded by the Shivers, Bud Shivers, and he's the son of Alan Shivers. Alan Shivers was the governor of the great state of Texas.
Okay.
And so there was another guy there, Charlie Teeple, and I worked for them until 1990. And the government came in.
So right out of college?
Right out of college,
Texas
into
Commerce,
banking.
then Windsor. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that's almost that's 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years,
banking
almost 10 years. Yeah,
okay.
about 9 years in banking.
And you for our guests who don't realize this, in the mid 80s, we had a meltdown in real estate.
Yeah.
And it was especially in Austin, Texas, and Central Texas, it was a ride. So I wouldn't even mind you touching on that a little bit, maybe so that we understand how dynamic that was at that time. Foreclosures, bank repos, and I'm assuming y'all had some of those on your books.
I think we had everything on our books as far as bank repos. I think we had, maybe 3 or 4 people that actually paid us according to the terms and conditions.
People, not businesses, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all about people.
Because it was a savings and loan. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
big deal. That was substantial here in Texas at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and when the government came in 1990, they just told me I wasn't a very good banker anymore.
Yeah.
And shut the institution down.
So it took them 10 years to figure that out?
Less than that. I mean, they shut it down pretty quick once they figured it out. But
Yeah.
the biggest problem with all the real estate, and it wasn't just in Texas, it was nationwide.
Yeah.
The biggest problem was the Tax Recovery Act of 1986.
Okay.
And so basically, anybody that was a passive investor, they took all of your benefits away that you could not write off anymore. And so everything basically declined by about 25% in value overnight.
So that's really I find that fascinating because, as you know, with the current administration, whether someone leans left or leans right, the tax strategies and the tax laws make a huge difference in how individuals or institutions invest in portfolios, especially real estate portfolios. So I don't think that I realized that was a leading force in what happened in the savings and loans and the scandals, or maybe what led to that. But eventually, ultimately, it was a tax law change. Is that what I'm hearing? That
I think
shifted the mindset?
It really shifted it. So from 86 on, I mean, everything, there were 44 financial institutions in Austin, Texas in the late 80s.
Okay.
And all but 2 of them failed or were combined with another institution.
That's substantial. So 42 out of 44 financial institutions in Austin in the mid to late 80s ultimately ended up being gobbled up or failed. Okay, so only 2 remain standing. Do you remember which ones those were?
Well, one was Horizon Savings,
Okay.
and it was primarily because they started in 1987.
Okay. And there you go. So so they had clean books.
And the other one was,
was Frost one of them, or they're out of San Antonio?
Frost was out of San Antonio. And the other one I don't really remember. I know that Allied Bank actually sold out for 5 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
And it eventually rolled up to Wells Fargo.
Okay.
So Wells Fargo was owned by Allied Bank. Windsor ended up being owned by Wells Fargo.
Okay.
And then Texas Commerce Bank was J.P. Morgan Chase.
Okay. Okay.
So the government came in, told me I wasn't a very good banker.
Okay.
Left, and so I got to stay there for a little while to figure out what I wanted to do next.
Okay.
But I knew I wasn't going to be a government guy because, at 4:45, you couldn't answer the phone for fear that the conversation might go past 5 o'clock.
Okay.
and they would not pay.
They wouldn't.
No,
Okay.
you were done. You were completely done at 5 o'clock. So I stayed there for about a year.
Okay.
And then I went to work for a company called Ontra. ONTRA,
Okay.
and we were an asset management company for the Resolution Trust Corporation.
Okay.
For the RTC. The RTC came in and took over all the financial savings and loans nationwide.
And for the younger crowd, they don't know what the RTC was, but that was a substantial endeavor by the government to basically come in and have a group that helps clean the books. And I know many of my friends that back in the day that did really well on buying up some of those assets from the RTC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it sounds like that you had some involvement with that. Is that right?
Oh, a big time involvement. Yeah. I mean, we had ended up having about $1 billion. So a little bitty company from Austin, Texas. We had $1 billion that we were managing for the government. Now, we started selling those assets well below value, well below cost. And so I had the idea that we ought to go ahead, or our group had the idea that we ought to go ahead and get rated by the rating agencies and try to get on the other side, on the equity side.
Okay.
By buying these properties because we were selling things so cheap.
Okay.
So I went to...
So you wanted to be able to have your outfit that could not only be the seller, but also could have an interest in the entity that's on the purchase side as well?
Ownership.
Wow.
On the ownership side.
Not bad.
So I went to our, the boss, the chairman. I was actually president of Ontra.
Okay.
And I went to the guy that had all the money.
Good thing you weren't president of FTX, right? I mean, we could go there.
So he ended up, I went to my boss, and I said, hey, we need to get rated because we need to get on the other side of this. And they said, how much money is that going to cost? And I said, all the money that we have. It's going to cost everything we have.
Okay.
And
for entities like that are risk adverse, they probably had to take a moment to think through that, or did they just jump at it and say, okay, we recognize the asset class and feel like that's going to recover?
Well, in theory.
Okay.
In theory. And so I went to New York and got rated by S&P,
okay,
Duff & Phelps, Fitch, and Moody's. Those were the four major rating agencies at the time.
Okay.
And it cost $350,000 to do that.
To get rated?
Which, by the way, was all the money that we had.
Okay.
I mean, we had zero money.
And this is $350 in the early 90s.
Early 90s. So
that's equivalent to $700 to $800 now?
Yeah, maybe $1 million. Maybe up to $1 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then we went on a road show, and I took one of my mentors, Kathy Van. We went up to New York to try to raise money because, back then, I mean, like from here to downtown, there's about 50 people that have $100 million funds.
Yeah.
Now they're, back in the 1991, there was nobody. You had to go to New York.
Yeah.
New York was the only place that you had money.
Okay.
And so we went to New York.
Institutional money? Is that what you were seeking?
Money.
Okay.
Yeah, institutional. We wanted big money.
So you didn't have anything. There wasn't Silicon Valley. There wasn't, trying to get tech money, which a lot of people in Austin for that industry are doing now. So for institutional money, New York is where you had to go.
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
So we went to 1585 Broadway, which is where Morgan Stanley still is. And I'm there for about 35 minutes, and the guy looks at me, and he puts his hand up, and he said, get the heck out of my office.
Okay.
He wasn't quite that nice.
And how old were you at the time? You were probably early 30s?
Early 30s.
Okay.
Early 30s. And so I go next over to DLJ, Donaldson, Lufkin, Ginrett, and we last about 42 minutes. So I'm like, well, this is good, you know. So I go downtown where Lehman Brothers, you may have heard of Lehman Brothers before they had their demise. I went downtown to Lehman, and Lehman, we actually made it like 47 minutes. And they said, get the out of our office, you country bumpkins from Texas. And so country bumpkins from Texas, we left. And so we were calling back to the guy that provided all the money, our chairman. And we told him what was happening every time. And he is out of control, livid. He is, I can't believe that you've wasted all this money. The locks may be changed when you get back. I don't even know. But we're wasting all this money. So the fourth group, he said, don't even call me. Don't even call me. So the fourth group we go is AIG.
Okay.
We're in AIG, and there's a guy named Kevin Fitzpatrick. He's like, he can make any decision up to $500 million himself.
Okay.
And we go about an hour and 15 minutes, and he puts his hand up. And I'm thinking, oh,
You're
my
like,
goodness.
here we go.
Here we go. Getting boomed. 0 for 4, you know. So he looked at me, and he said, well, I'll give you $500 million to start.
Which was his limit.
Which was his limit.
Okay.
But it's a big limit.
Sure.
And you know, I look back.
But I mean, my point in that is that he stroked it.
He stroked it.
As far as he could. Okay, yeah.
And I look back to him as poker faced as I possibly could and said, well, that's a start. And so from there, you know, Wall Street is kind of in a lot of ways like, I hate to say this because I may need to go back, but they're kind of like lemmings. And so once
they're like what?
Lemmings?
Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, once you get one of them in line, they keep kind of following each other. So we ended up getting $1.2 billion from Citicorp.
Yeah. Because no one wants to be the first. You know, they don't want to be the guinea pig. They're like, well, if AIG's in, if Lehman's in, if Morgan's in, okay, we've got to get in on this.
And AIG ended up giving us about $1.1 billion.
Okay.
Credit Suisse, First Boston at the time, now Credit Suisse, they gave us about $350 million. And then my least favorite group, Goldman Sachs.
Okay, yeah.
And it's part of our problem and part of their problem. Yeah. But they gave us about $300 million. So we ended up buying a little over $3 billion in assets.
Bob, in today's world, we hear the word billion a lot. Like it's almost easy to take that number for granted. But we're talking the early 90s. Like you didn't hear billion in this city very often. Mm-hmm. Like I don't remember. I didn't know it existed until like 3 weeks ago. Right? But that's substantial, man. Yeah. That really is. Okay. Yeah. So you get the commitments from these players. Yep. Then what happens?
We go and buy in 47 states. Okay. We buy 12,000 properties, primarily non-performing loans secured by residential and commercial real estate.
Okay. Is this residential single family, or is this residential multifamily, or a combination of both?
Combination. Okay. About $1 billion of the whole portfolio were commercial, which would include the multifamily, and then 1 to 4, you know, so residential up to a fourplex. Okay. We bought about $2 billion worth. Okay. And so, and our only underwriting criteria at the time was 25% of compressed replacement cost. Okay. There was no internal rate of return calculation. Okay. There was no Argus model on modeling.
And compressed replacement cost, is that on the insurance side?
No, the cost had actually come down to build something about 18 to 22%. I mean, the country was in, you know, a bad shape. Mm-hmm. But we figured unless we were going to go back to the rock pile, that we were going to be okay. Yeah. And so we ended up you know, buying all those properties and between 92 and 94. And then the market just took us, you know, up. And so in 1998, the market got white hot. Mm-hmm. We took our last $400 million that we had.
You said 98?
1998.
Okay. And part of that, and I think it's worth mentioning that in the mid-late 80s, interest rates were 10, 12, 14, 17, 16%. It was in the teens, right? Mm-hmm. And then that was while we had Reagan in the White House until 88. Is that right? And then Bush 88 to 92, and then Clinton 92 to 2000. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
So it was when Clinton came in office, you know, our younger generation probably doesn't understand the dynamic, you know, how dynamic he was instead of having his hand up in people's skirts, right? But he was somebody to be able to move the needle. And ultimately, interest rates started to come down around that time because I got in the industry in late 94, and interest rates had been coming down like upper nines. And then from that point, you know, 8, 7, 6 is from there. So I think that it's worth mentioning that part of that recovery had a lot to do in some form or fashion with interest rates lowering, similar to what we're experiencing now. You know, people are, you know, they're spoiled. If an interest rate doesn't start with a 2 or a 3, they're freaking out because they start with a 5 or a 6 and maybe a 7. Mm-hmm. They didn't live through that. So I just want to point that out, that I think that from a timing standpoint, that really probably helped your group too.
No question. You know, if I had known since 1981 that interest rates would gradually reduce until, March of this year.
Until they were inverted.
We would be having this conversation on my island.
That's right.
Yeah, and it would be bigger than St. Kitts or St. Bart's. I mean, it'd be
Well,
a
I'd
big
be on
island.
my island,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't be able to hear. We'd have to talk through, through seashells or something.
That's true. That's very true. But it is a gigantic part of it.
Yeah.
A gigantic part of it. No question.
So that's mid-late 90s at that point. Okay.
So sold the last $400 million. Made really, our company made really good money, of which I was one of the owners, and ended up going in 1999 to the landscaping business.
Okay.
So on a roll up.
How does that transition from being a banker into landscaping, unless perhaps it was one of those, it was a property that y'all got that was on your books, and you're like, okay, now, but how do you like walk me through? Was it a buyout? Was it did you dissolve the partnership or the entity? Like, tell me how you got into landscaping from that.
Well, and I will say that Entra is still around today.
Okay.
And so, when I left in 99, here we are 23 years later, and they're still around. In fact, the lady that I went up to New York with, Kathy Van, she still runs Entra. So it's still around today.
And she was a mentor of yours then?
Yes.
Are y'all still?
We're still in contact,
Okay.
but not like we were before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So ended up. I was looking for other opportunities. I actually took over a company for a brief period of time out of Denver called First Denver Mortgage, and I was a mortgage guy.
How did I not know this?
Well,
maybe because you weren't a very good mortgage guy and you didn't want to talk about it?
I was not very good at a lot of things. I wasn't a very good banker.
Yeah.
When we ended up actually selling out of the last $400 million, we did we thought we could do a call center because we had predictive dialers. We were well ahead. I've always
and y'all were bulletproof. I mean,
we were bulletproof because we'd done
no
so
wrong
well.
at that time.
And
Right,
about $300,000 later, I realized I wasn't a very good call center guy. So,
okay.
So there's been some bumps along the way. So I went briefly to.
You were like, yeah. But briefly, you go to First Denver Mortgage, thinking that you can sell mortgages in Austin, Texas, for a Denver mortgage company. That seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
That didn't really work out like I was CEO of the company.
Okay.
And we had about $400 million in servicing that kind of ran the company, and then we were buying some notes and doing things. But then the guy that I worked for really was in London, and he says, let's go ahead and shut Denver down and let's all move to Beverly Hills. Well, he had the money to move to Beverly Hills. He had a house in Beverly Hills, and I would have to live in Agoura or Westlake or somewhere over the
and
mountain.
Not Austin Westlake.
And not Austin Westlake. Yeah. Different Westlake.
Agoura Hills.
Yeah, Agoura Hills. That's right. So, and I just, other than the weather, I just wasn't a California guy.
You didn't want to pay the state income tax?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which hadn't gotten better, by the way.
Yeah, it's gotten worse.
It's gotten worse.
So you're like, no, not going to do that.
Not going to do that.
Okay.
So looked around, and I just had an opportunity with some guys to go buy some landscaping companies.
Okay.
And the company ended up rolling up from Seattle all the way through the Smile in the United States up to Boston and Chicago. And I ran the southern half of the United States.
Okay.
I had 4,000 employees personally.
How did I
that
not know this?
reported to me.
Okay.
So,
and this was in your late 30s, is that right?
This is
when was this? This was late 90s.
Yeah,
and
so it's right at 40s.
Okay.
Or late 30s, early 40s.
And you've been married to Kristen for how long at that point?
We got married in 1983.
83.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did y'all have any? So you just started producing babies around that time, like late 90s, right?
Yeah, late. No, 1990 is the first one, and 93 was the second one.
Oh, is that right?
So we waited 7 years for the first one, and
Okay.
then we had another baby in 2001. So that
Okay.
was 18 years after we were married.
Okay. And then y'all just had one like, a year or two ago, right?
No,
I'm kidding.
no. It could.
As debonair as you are.
Yeah.
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 But you told me that you're still strong. That if Mama wanted to have babies, you'd be okay with that.
Oh, well, I've actually had, been taken care
You
of.
went to snip?
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
if she gets pregnant, it's
Yeah.
going to be Lucy
Lucy.
We got some explaining to do. Yeah.
It's like my wife, Kelly, telling me, she said, she wants to, she maybe would consider having a third. And I said, well, I went to Snip Snip. She said, I didn't say it had to be yours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I said, well, there you go. Touche.
There's always an alternative.
There's always an alternative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Always
okay.
a workaround.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on the landscaping, man,
Yes.
I had no idea on this. You had 4,000 employees.
4,000 employees.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I had about 1,600 were full time.
Okay.
And 2,400 were under H-2B visa program.
Okay. Yeah.
Where they come over for a period of time, and typically they're gone starting in November, and they stagger all the way through April, where they go back to Mexico,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
mostly Monterrey area, come back after that.
Okay.
It's a great program, legal. Very,
it's amazing
legal,
how that
legal
works when you do it legally, right? Just to open up the border.
And we really need more.
Yeah.
I mean, we really need more of that.
Yeah, we do.
And not less. But,
Right.
we wanted, the whole intent was to sell it to a publicly traded company,
Okay.
which we ended up doing in 2004.
Okay, so you sold in how I didn't know this just shows you how selfish I am when we have our conversations. So sold in 2004. Okay, so you clearly have that entrepreneurial spirit.
Correct.
Okay, and so that leads up to 04, and I can do the quick math. You've been with Stewart for 18 years. So now you go from selling the landscaping company, being a partner with that outfit, seemingly doing well with that.
Sure.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then next on your horizon is title. How does that happen?
Well, I cast a wide net, and that's what I always tell young people that are trying to look for jobs, that are either out of work or looking for new jobs and new opportunities. You got to cast a wide net. So I came and cast a wide net. I had traveled incessantly and almost like 14.
That's a strong word
for 14
years. Use for that.
Incessantly. That's like 4 syllables.
Say that real fast.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I traveled for 14 years every week.
Okay.
Or just about every week.
Work related.
Work related.
Okay.
I had about 3.5 million miles on American Airlines alone.
Okay.
So, I mean, just by way of comparison, it's, and my, Kristen, my wife said, can you take a little time off?
Yeah.
And you probably just from our little discussion this morning can tell that it would be almost impossible for me to, I mean, I could take like 3 minutes off.
Yeah.
She wanted me to take 3 years off.
Mm-hmm.
I think I took 3 weeks off.
Okay.
And cast a wide net, and everything from running a landscape architecture company here to going back into banking to doing a lot of different things. And then I had known the people over at Stewart Title. One of the other, my big mentor, Larry Molinaire, had been there since 1974, and I'd known him since 1982. Mm-hmm. And he said, come on over here. We're getting our butts whipped by several other title companies.
Uh-huh. Who was the big dog that y'all were competing against at that time?
Well, it's Heritage Title.
Heritage,
I mean, it's really the only
Gary and that crew.
Yeah. I don't really know the guy's name, but I know what you're saying.
There you go. You've heard of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it vaguely. And so, and we really didn't have any commercial presence. So 3 weeks in March of 2005, so about 3 weeks after I got paid out of the landscape closure, I went into the title business.
Well, and you had to do something different. I'm sure you had a non-compete, I would imagine.
No.
With the landscape? No. So you could have just gone right
we
back
had
out.
We had a one year non-compete, but I could have gone into the it wasn't on the installation side, it was just on the maintenance side.
Okay.
So I could have done that, but I just was ready to do something else.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've been there for 18 years.
Okay. And so, Larry, he was, and he was always kind of one of the godfathers, along with the few of the others,
yes.
right? And his son Walker, is he still? Now I know that he was with Stewart also, and then he went and he's in investment now, isn't he?
Yeah, Walker has a company called Prime Multifamily.
Okay,
and they buy B and C multifamily apartment complexes.
Okay.
And then they fix them up, and they're kind of a merchant group.
Their thing. Okay.
And they sell them. But he's a great,
I love him, super
guy.
Yeah.
Just like his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they in that group, right? So let's talk a little bit about Stewart. And I think it's clearly worth mentioning, and forgive me for not touching on this earlier in our conversation, but there are, what'd you say, 500 to 600 biz dev representatives for Stewart Title across the landscape. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you are by far, head and shoulders, the number one producer for the entire enterprise. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty strong. I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's not like you're a badass or anything.
No,
but
I
you do
would-
all right.
yeah.
You do all right.
I mean, yes.
Wow. And then what's the gap between your production and then the next person's
You know,
production?
the numbers are a little bit loose, depending, and it varies.
Well, you're a little bit loose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but loose.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say. I know that there's 690 offices nationwide, 7,000 employees. I think
Okay.
there's probably closer to 600 than 500 as far as the biz dev
Okay.
side. And it's the delta between 1 and 2 is pretty substantial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that means the delta between Bob and everybody else is pretty substantial. We're going to talk about that, man. I really want to dive into that because I want to understand what drives you. You know, when you're at the pinnacle of your craft and you're not necessarily having to look over your shoulder, because a lot of times for me that's what drives me, right? It's either the person right in front of me or just having the rear view and saying, okay, I know where they're at. But if there's that large of a gap, how do you stay motivated?
Well, couple things. One is that you always want to kind of compete with yourself. It's kind of like a track guy,
Yeah.
that's running a 400, and he's at a 44.7, and all he wants to do is get to a 44.5.
Okay.
And so, even though he's the fastest guy in the 400, he wants to beat his own time.
Okay.
So that's kind of what drives me from that perspective. And then, secondly, is that I just have a competitive spirit that I want to be the best that I possibly can be.
Okay.
And that's driven by my dad. My dad worked until he was 87. Back went out, could not work
So
anymore.
he retired early, basically.
He retired
Yeah.
early. He retired early, and he ended up. He's 91 now.
Okay.
But he stays relevant. He loves the Astros.
Okay.
He knows what Altuve.
Well, he's just jumping on a bandwagon. Do you love them whenever they weren't
Oh
winning?
no, he watches.
Yeah.
Back when they were losing 100 games or winning 100 games, didn't make any difference. He watches every pitch of every game.
Okay.
And he'll know. What Altuve's.
You know what he had for breakfast?
I said, Dad, how's Altuve doing? He said, well, he's hitting 278 for the year, but the last 15 games he's batting 314. And I'm like, wow. The announcers don't know that.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So,
He needs to be. He needs to be color commentator. Right?
He is on top of
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
He's confined to a wheelchair now, but the competitive spirit. I mean, he worked, minimum 65, 70 hours a week, and so. The idea of him working is not foreign to him, and so watching him, I'm just kind of driven to do that.
Okay, so you're setting your own. So that's what you're doing. Is you've been a trailblazer. You hit these these numbers that are out of the ballpark, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to compete against myself since there's no one else to compete with within my organization. But I would assume that you probably know this. Where do you rank in industry, right? Because there's not just Stewart, there's Chicago, there are the other ones, right?
Right.
Any idea where you rank in that? And do you get reports?
No, there's no reports like that. Now, I've been told by my boss's boss.
Oh, your wife then?
Yeah, I've been told by my wife, to be a little more humble. So anyway, no, but I've been told that the numbers are one in the industry, but I really don't have any way to track what's happening at Fidelity or First American.
Well, you know what happens, at least in the mortgage industry, we get those reports. We kind of have an idea of who's kicking it and who's not, whether it's within our own organization or others. But many times we look at them and go, dadgummit, those guys out in Cali are crushing it with the larger loan sizes, or in New York or Jersey or wherever it may be, guys in the Bay Area. So do you find that to also be the case for you, where you see these larger policies in these other states, or is that not so much? Is it skewed more towards the middle because a lot of what you do is commercial related? Well,
and let's also, to be fair, say that we're in, the best country in the world. We're in the best state in the union, and we're in the best city in the state.
But that wasn't always the case.
It wasn't always.
I
the
mean,
case.
to us
Yeah,
it was, but let's be real.
But
right?
it's been. It hasn't always been the case. But the last, call it 15 years.
Yeah.
It's been on an upward
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
And really, I will also say, I'm measuring things is terms of total premiums, and the premiums in the state of Texas are higher than California and New York.
Okay.
Now they make up, because business is business. They
Yeah.
make up for it by escrow fees.
Okay.
And so the escrow fees may be 4, 5, 6 times more in California that they are here, but the title premiums may be half that they are.
Okay, so that's a very good point. So really, and I think it's worth mentioning. So you can have someone that says, like a mortgage, I closed 500 units or 600 units last year, but at the end of the day, for that individual and for the organization that they work for, it's about the bottom line, right? So that's what matters. And I've closed loans in enough states to where I know that the policies in Texas are some of the highest cost policies to the end user, to the borrowers. But our closing escrow fees are lower than what they are in other states.
Correct.
In California, as an example, the policies are less, but the escrow fees, to your point, are 3-4x what they are here.
Yeah.
So it's about the bottom line. So with Stewart, you're a huge asset to them because their bottom line is severely in the black because of Mr. Bob Roberts. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, in Austin, and they're
Yeah.
severely in the black,
Yeah.
nationwide
Yeah.
too. So. Although, refinances, as you well know, are somewhat off,
Yeah.
like non-existent in a lot of ways.
Well, but Bob, you're right. They're non-existent right now, but that gives everybody the opportunity to breathe, because I'm sure for Stewart, the same was for us, is that the last couple of years, if we're talking residential, okay, or commercial as well, when
Sure.
rates are low, everybody's refinancing, right? So you're getting those policies are stacking, but and corporate knows that that's not going to last forever.
Correct.
So are you like me, where the last couple of years have just been so insane? You're like, hey, I want a breather. I need a breather just to have some sanity, but also to get out and market, right? Because I want to get in front of people that I haven't been able to get in front of people in a long time. Did that happen to you, or have you consistently just stayed the course?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
No, from the standpoint that, and maybe we'll go back a little bit. Last year, 2021, we did 5.7, just my group, 5.7 billion. Okay. Back up to 2020, 3.5 billion.
So 20 was 3.5, 21 was 5.7. What about 19?
19 was 3.5.
3.5.
And now people were like, "Are you upset that you didn't go up?" And I go, "COVID year? No, I'm not upset."
Right.
The fact that we stayed flat, I
Yeah.
was very happy. And the reason why I was happy is that in 20 there was no hospitality trades, there was no retail trades.
Right.
There were very, very few office trades.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to make it up in multifamily and industrial.
Okay.
Back up to 18.
Real quick.
Yeah.
When you say your group, you're talking about your group in Austin.
Just my group.
Okay.
Right.
And of those transactions, is that gross policy? Is that what that is? Or gross volume?
That is volume,
Okay.
Either by loan amount
Okay.
and or sales price.
Okay.
Right.
Was that in Central Texas for your group?
For the most part in Central Texas.
Okay.
We have the ability to close virtually anywhere.
Yeah, right.
However, I would, and we do a lot of work in San Antonio.
Okay.
We did some work in Dallas. We did some work in Houston. We've done things last year and this year in Florida, Tennessee, Colorado, Oklahoma. And so, but
And you're getting those
that's
through
small.
your relationships,
That's
right?
through our
Yeah, okay,
relationships.
okay.
There are people that are in Austin that are doing deals outside of Austin.
And they want to work with you and your group,
Right.
and they know that y'all span the coast to coast. So
Correct.
not an issue there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But that puts it into perspective that the bulk of your business is in, let's say, Central Texas. Let's say it's 80 to 90% of your
Right.
business. Okay.
Right.
So you go from mid threes to mid upper five. So you're increasing by 40%, 45%.
Correct.
And at that time, that that's not sustainable.
Correct.
Does corporate understand that, or do they?
Yes.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah. They are really. It's really a wonderful company to work for because they leave me really alone.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're delivering results.
Right.
But it's nice because I have the backing of a great company.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's no micromanagement of it, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of like running your own business.
And their corporate offices are out of Houston, right?
That's correct.
And they're family owned still, or did
No,
they go?
no, it's
Did they go?
publicly traded.
Okay, public.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is the so? And do you have stock?
Well, we have an employee stock purchase plan.
Okay,
and so I max out.
You max that out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We can buy it. It's a great program over a 6-month period where they look at the lowest time over a 6-month period, and you can buy the stock at 10% below that lowest point.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then you can do that every 6 months.
And you're capped at how many shares? Do you know how many shares you're capped?
You're capped at 22,000 a year.
22,000 a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And then do they do some sort of a match as well? Maybe
Then they have a 401k,
401k
program that does have a match, and it's 6% up to a certain dollar amount.
I think it's in the 22 to 25 range.
It probably is.
So you're reinvesting in yourself, so to speak, because you're reinvesting in the stock options with Stewart. Okay, and you believe in the company and the performance of the company, and so you're throwing. On the stock purchases, you're throwing 22,000, and you're also doing the same thing on your 401k. Do they do a 1-to-1 match, or do they do a 50% match on that?
Well, it's about 25,000 because I'm over 50.
Yeah,
I mean
you're over 50.
Can you believe it?
On your chest or your age, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, according to my birth certificate. So over 50, I think you can put up to 25,000.
Okay.
And so I put the whole 25,000 in.
Okay.
And then I think they matched it up to like 8,000, something like that.
Okay.
So always get your company match.
Yeah,
regardless of what it is.
So if you had any suggestion,
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I do the same thing.
It's free
right?
money. It's free money,
yeah. Right? And if with my banking partners that I've similar to you, they'll do a 1-to-1 match up to the max, right? So it's like, man, if I'm going to throw 20 or 25 in there, they're throwing 20 or 25 in there. That's a no-brainer.
No-brainer.
Yeah. And now you'll have the hot shots, on YouTube or on the internet that say, hey, don't invest in stock market. I'm like, hey, if that's the only thing that I'm investing in, and there's some others, right? But I mean, to your point, do it.
Absolutely.
Max it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're investing in yourself, which is investing through your company that you're working for in your W-2, straight W-2, right? No 1099. Okay.
Straight W-2.
Do you have anything else that you're doing with other endeavors on top of being a stud with Stewart? Like, do you have any other, you or your wife, any other LLCs, any other endeavors that y'all are invested in?
Not really. One of the things I don't want to do is have a conflict.
Yeah.
Where if I'm investing with XYZ company, and there's somebody.
You're so boring.
Well, I am, pretty much. So I don't want to go ahead and have a conflict like that, because I really like to try to get, a lot of different businesses.
Yeah.
And if I'm investing some, even though it's not a conflict, and I've done it to a limited degree, but it's very limited.
But you can see where I'm going with that, right? Because you're on the inside on some deals that are coming down the pike on the development side. And maybe you do a land deal with a developer that you have seen that has their skins on the wall. Their last 8 deals have crushed it.
Right.
They're raising capital, limited partnership. I'm actually surprised that you haven't done that, or that you choose not to, because I can't say that I wouldn't. Even if, maybe it's not so much a conflict of interest. It's almost like, hey, you're a partner of ours. You use me. And so, and you believe in Stewart. I believe in you outside of Stewart. So I'm surprised that you haven't done that.
Well, I actually have 7 different deals right now.
I knew it. Okay.
I mean, it's on a big scale. It's not that big.
Okay.
On a big scale.
I knew I would uncover this.
So there's
today.
just there's a little bit, but not
the
a
Stewart
whole lot.
guys are behind this door right here, right? I told my
well, and
producer.
to be fair, I do disclose everything.
Of course,
ahead of time, so they know about it. Yeah,
and I'm sure that because y'all are publicly traded, that there are some restrictions on what you can and can't invest in, and you have to go, like if you have a deal that you're going to bubble, so it has to go to legal, I guess, and then they have to sign off on it.
But it's 10% of any one deal, and so most of the deals that you're looking at, you're at 2% or 0.5% or 1%. I mean, it's not that big. It's not up to 10%. So you don't get into that gray area.
Okay. So that says a limited partner on an LL. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a limited partner.
Okay.
No active GP type stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that we're clear on that. So there are some strategies and opportunities there that are maybe some tax strategies, right? We have friends that are in multifamily, for example, friends that maybe are you have some depreciation opportunity and you get a K1 and you get the depreciation off of that, because where I think that there's value there, at least for me, especially over the years, Bob, is that being W-2 for the last 15 years from the banking world, you don't get, and same for you, you don't get those write-offs, the tax code opportunities that you have. And so I do invest in some other endeavors similar to you, to where I can get some of those tax shelters. So I would encourage those in our audience that haven't done that are maybe doing really well in their W-2 employees and are just getting roasted on their tax schedule, to look at that. And that seems like that's been something good for you over the years.
Yeah, that's been really good.
Okay.
I probably have about 25% of liquidity portfolio in some type of tax deferred scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And it's also with your relationships that you have and those that you work with, these are conversation pieces, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. That those that you're getting your business from, those relationships, these are repeat clients, right? Over and over and over, and they could go anywhere. Why is it? I don't want to state the obvious, but they love you, but they stick with Stewart and they don't go with one of the others for a reason. What do you think that reason is?
I think it's the consistency of the employees and people that I work with. I mean, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
And in 18 years or almost 18 years being in the company, we have lost 3 people over 18 years in the financial scenario, all due to retirement.
Okay.
So once somebody comes in and works with us, they don't leave. And so, and we were very cognizant on exactly who we're looking for, and it has to be somebody that kind of fits the culture. And if there's not a cultural fit, it's just not worth it.
Well, that's a huge part of it. Culture, right? They say that about so many different organizations, right? And it starts from the top down, right? And so I'm presuming safely that the culture within Stewart Title is super strong, and it's not just your team, but because you can feel that energy, right? That's coming from corporate or internal emails or legal, or just when you feel the pressure coming in. So for you guys, would you agree that that's the case for your organization?
Yeah, and I would say it's really more not necessarily nationwide, because you have 690 offices, so it's not one shoe fits all. But it's such a culture of getting stuff done, rolling up your sleeves, and getting things accomplished, and pretty much damming the torpedoes. Let's get this figured out.
Yeah.
We have great underwriters that kind of they can't be deal guys, but they're deal guys and gals. And so that's a big part of it, is when somebody else says, this is what we can't do, we figure out, well, we can do it with this exception, or we can do it doing it this way. So it's just a little bit different thought process.
Yeah.
And at my instruction 18 years ago, we were paid on incentive. It's eat what you kill. And most title companies are paid a high base and then a low incentive, and we're completely flip-flopped. And that's different than
Okay. So your lower base, higher incentive?
Lower base, higher incentive.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And is that a little different from industry?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And obviously someone who is a high performer loves it. I know that I would.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would say that probably attracts the type of talent that I would want to have on my team.
And
someone
some people
who wants go eat what you kill.
Right.
Right? Some people don't like that, right? Yeah. Some people need the backstop, but you're an eat what you kill kind of a guy. Do they give you the opportunity to go to negotiate on your structure? If you say, hey, I want to be someone who's, I want it to be all about production versus somebody else.
Completely flip-flop how everybody was paid when I started.
Okay.
Now, I told everybody I'm going to pay you exactly how you got paid last year. However, in the event that you go over this threshold, you will end up getting paid more.
Okay.
And I was the devil incarnate. People did not like that idea. They thought it was horrible. They thought this was the worst thing ever. I did tell them after the end of the year, if it was completely and utterly inequitable, that we'll revisit the comp structure and we'll look at it again.
Is this every year?
No,
Oh,
this was the first year.
The first year at Stewart.
At Stewart.
Okay, okay.
And so everybody thought, complained. Now, month 3 and 4, this is 2005.
Okay.
Month 3 and 4, they're making more money they've ever made in their lives. And this is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And even 08, 9, 10, 11, the tougher years, they ended up making about a 1.05 to 1.15x of what they would have made if they had got a 2.5% raise every year.
Okay. And this is your team.
And this is the team.
Your team, not just you as the set.
Not just me,
Okay.
but this is the team.
Because a lot of times a team, they don't have that mindset, right? That's why they're not in sales. So they had to, it was a leap of faith to a degree.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And y'all haven't looked back on that.
Haven't looked back.
Yeah.
And now, some people are making 3.5, 4x of what they would have made.
Okay.
Under the other scenario.
So if you had a younger version of yourself with XYZ title company and they were struggling in the current environment, right? Maybe they've been in the business a year, maybe they've been in the business 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? What advice would you give them on what they need to do to dig in and to get to that next level?
In what capacity are they?
Volume.
Are they on the sales side?
Yeah, they're on the sales side. Yeah, they're Bob Roberts Jr. with a fro,
with a big fro.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
What I would tell them is to go and find whatever industry, not just the title business. I would find out who the number one person is in that industry, and I would do whatever I had to do to get in front of them and spend time with them.
Dude, you're going to be busy.
Yeah, well,
people are gonna
I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about
number 2. They need to go number 2.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter what industry it is.
Yeah.
It's just I think you just find out. In the mortgage industry, go to Steve-O Johnson. Go to Steve-O and say, can I go and buy you a Matt's margarita, a knockout? Can I get you a knockout?
Get a knockout.
And you say, well, heck yeah, I'll do that.
Of course.
Yeah.
How can you say no to that?
You can't say no to that. Yeah.
Okay,
So get in front of Steve Johnson. And figure out exactly what you do, and then replicate it, and replicate it, and replicate it.
In related industries or in
any
non-related? Okay.
In any industry. Okay. No, I'm talking about in related industries.
Right.
Whoever, if you're a mortgage guy coming out and you just got laid off, figure out who the best person is, or if you're let's say you're in the 50th percentile and you want to get to the 25th percentile.
Yeah.
Find out who's doing better. Don't talk to the people that are in the that are in the lower quartile.
Yeah.
Don't talk to those
or even
people.
in your own.
Yeah.
Right.
Go find out who's doing the best and go replicate it.
Yeah.
And you can tweak it a little bit. You can make it your own. But for the most part, if you find out who the best is, figure out what they're doing and just replicate it. It's
really in any industry, any landscape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also what that does is that broadens your horizons on your relationship, on your spheres, on those within your core group, right? I'm assuming that to be the case, right?
Yeah.
But these could be, to your point, these could be cold calls. So let's say somebody does that and they call Bob Roberts, right? Maybe it's an unrelated industry, and they let's say it's just cold right out of the freezer. How do you handle that when someone reaches out to you?
I talk to them.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll meet with them.
You will?
Yeah.
Does it need to be a Matt's knockout margarita to get you over?
Oh, there's some conditions. Yeah, make no mistake. There's conditions to it.
Yeah.
No, there's no conditions. I mean, I meet with them and I try to help them. I love being a mentor to whoever and trying to help them out.
Yeah.
And I do that same thing with my team.
And so with that, over the years, you've had that mentality, you've had that mindset, and you've been really good at that, right? Because your relationships across spectrums, whether it's mortgage or real estate or title or development, I mean, you have a pretty broad stroke on those within your sphere. How do you manage that? Because you are one of the best at, my experience has been, at follow-up, at touching, at dripping, whatever you want to call it, right? So how do you find the time in the day to manage that experience and stay consistent?
Well, first of all, if we go back, I haven't always been that generous with my time.
I'm just talking about in the last week.
But yeah. But that was part of it. I've definitely since in the last, say, 15 years had much, much better balance, because when I was, your age, early 30s, I would go ahead and late
32,
20s,
33.
Yeah. When I was your age, I worked, very, very hard and very, probably to the detriment of everything because I wasn't as balanced. And now I would say now that I'm a lot more balanced than I was. But to answer your question, I think wherever you are, you need to get some type of, whether it's Salesforce at the very top, or whether it's some type of CRM system. I have an off the shelf software system version 14 from 1995.
Okay.
Called ACT.
You
can go buy it. At Office Depot today. I mean,
that's what you use, and you just stuck
and that's
with
what
it
I
through
do.
the years.
And so because I'm not that smart, I go in every day to my office and I walk in. There's 15 alerts on there.
Okay.
There's 15 items that I have to do that day, and I don't leave until I do those 15.
Okay.
And so
do you knock them out early, or do you?
I'm consistent across the day.
How do you overcome the procrastination, or is there just no?
There's
option?
no procrastination.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't procrastinate.
Okay.
Can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's 15 items, and so I'll get, and I don't put more than 15. Typically 12 to 15 items.
Okay.
And it just tells me I've got to call Steve O. Johnson today.
Okay.
I've got to do this. I've got to send this out to somebody. I've got to do this presentation, and it's just all consistent.
Okay.
And consistency is everything in any business.
Okay.
It is 100% about the follow up.
Well, and you have that track record, right? I mean, you've been in other industries. The one that you've been in, you're at the top of the mountain, and so you're saying that the consistency in what you expect out of yourself and how you deliver that product, and for you, the product is not only yourself, but it's an experience. Because at the end of the day, we're in the commodity world.
Right.
You're a commodity. What you're delivering is a commodity, and the perception is, well, I can go to Stewart Title, I can go to Chicago Title, I can go to Heritage Title, I can go to Independent, I could go any of these, right? And you're selling an experience.
Well, and it's a little bit, that's true, but it's a little bit more than that.
Okay.
And in Texas, especially in the title industry, because we all charge exactly the same.
Right. Yeah.
So it's even there.
It's regulated.
It's regulated.
Yeah.
There's no quarter of a point difference. Not that should matter really, but
it does level. It levels the playing field.
It levels
for
the
you
playing
guys.
field. And so, there's three ways, and this is a big secret. And I hope that nobody at those places that you mentioned, listen to this podcast. Although I'm sure they will.
Oh, they're getting trade secrets, man, as we speak.
But basically, there's three things that every single client needs. One of three things, or a combination of all three. They need their debt, they need equity, or they need deal flow.
Okay, let's walk through that.
Yeah.
They need debt, they need equity, or deal flow.
Right.
The debt that's being delivered,
right,
where you're partnering with a lender,
right.
The equity is the equity that they need in the project,
correct.
And then let's walk through the deal flow.
Deal flow.
Yeah.
If something that I can disclose falls out of contract, I've got a list of about 15 names that I send out. This deal is out there.
Okay.
And it's just different than what most people do.
Okay.
Nobody does that.
Okay.
Nobody, yesterday I got a call from a guy in Houston, big time guy, big name. And he said, I've got a seasonal housing facility. It's 88% leased. I need, 50 to 55% loan to cost or loan to value. I need, about 26 million. Who in Austin would do that? And I sent him 10 names. And so that's value add on something that if he and he's got a term sheet on a couple of them.
Yep.
And that is going to be something that he will do his next deal with us because I was helping him with that. I also, same thing with equity. I've got people that will invest $25,000 that I know of in equity, and it's all on basically 3 Excel spreadsheets. I use Excel every day, even though I'm an old dude.
Yep.
1906.
Well, that's why I use Excel. That's all you know.
That's all I know. That's all I know. I mean, it used to be Lotus Notes.
That's
People
right.
don't know Lotus Notes is, but when you've been doing this since 1906, you
Well, I
pointed
thought
out
it was
a couple
1896.
times. Well,
Or was it-
that's when I was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So
never mind.
1906 is when I started doing.
Started.
this.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
They ended up, but if I have these 3, basically Excel spreadsheets. And so somebody comes in and says, hey, I need between 25,000 and 500 million.
Yeah.
I know the guys to do that.
So you mentioned, so when I hear you say, I gave him 10 names, to me, that seems excessive.
Yeah.
Like, why do you give 10? It could be 8, right? But why are you giving him 10 instead of 3 or 4?
Well, typically,
and then
10
say,
is
hey,
kind of
I'm going to give you
probably
3 or 4, and
exaggeration.
if there's,
Yeah, I typically, depending on what it is, I send 5.
okay,
Is kind of a rule of thumb.
Okay.
But, I've got another 5 behind it
okay.
just in case.
And do you give these guys a heads up? Like,
I do.
Okay,
I do.
say,
I
hey,
typically
so-and-so might
I
be-
typically make virtual introductions.
Okay, and
yeah.
and like me, whenever I do that, whether it's mortgage related, real estate, title, whatever it may be, I do the same thing, right? I'm like, hey, Bob, heads up, so and so may be calling you.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's it helps continue this the cementing the relationship with that source, and these could be people in my industry that would be considered competition. I just consider them colleagues. It's like,
Right.
hey, so and so, I think can take care of you. I'm not going to be able to, but I take the time to make sure that that they understand that they're in my sphere, and you do the same thing. And what that does, again, it's a pay it forward mentality. And you find that's, I would imagine for you, that's been very successful for you.
It's great. Yeah, it's absolutely great.
Yeah.
And it's just so helpful to know that I help them make money.
Yes.
And it has nothing to do with me. I am a licensed broker, and I have been since
Licensed real estate broker?
licensed real estate broker
Okay.
since 19. You probably didn't know that, but
Well,
since
and neither did Stuart.
1981. Yeah, they know. They know. I told them, but I don't use it.
Okay.
I've never used it.
Well, then that's a
So, but I keep it because if you don't keep
Don't
it,
use it,
you lose it. So, my dad's a licensed broker, and
Okay.
so we've had it forever, and so we just continue to keep it. Now, that being said, people say, well, I'll give you 2% if you get this deal done, or I'll
Yeah.
give you 3% or 4% or whatever the number is. And I said, no, I'll tell you what, just close with me. I don't want the perception.
Same thing with me.
Just close the
right?
deal
with
with
some
me.
of the builders
Yeah.
that I refer business to.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I'm like, no, man, we're in it together.
We're in it
Yeah,
together.
just keep,
Yeah.
If you have a client referral, send them over. It all works itself out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you see a lot of we're speaking very similar languages where it has so much to do with your sphere and those that are in your circle. And some of these guys and gals that you're referring these deals to, maybe you hadn't seen a deal from them in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And a lot of times it's because they're still working on putting deals together.
Right.
But that keeps you on the forefront of their mind as often as you can. And you're really good about just dripping. And you're really good also, you send out your monthly, I don't know how often you send them out, but the data reports. Touch on that a little bit, like your source on the data that you pull, and it's usually very, very helpful. Like I know with me, I never ping you. Go,
Right.
hey man, thanks a lot. Sometimes I do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'll read it. I'll review it. I don't
Yeah.
know how many do, but tell me when you started doing that and the value of that for your relationships.
I started doing that right out of the box.
Okay.
And really, when you all charge exactly the same, you have to do something to differentiate yourself from the herd. And
Yeah.
so I thought, what happens if I do this little, monthly MLS report, multiple listing service report, where you see what's happening in different areas. If nobody looks at it, fine, and then also, let's look at nationwide. Let's look at what's happening in employment in Austin, Texas. Let's look at the jobs that are being created in Austin, Dallas, and Houston, or in San Antonio. And so just looking at different things, what data points. Now, I will never send you, when you need to set your clocks back.
Yeah.
I'll never send you, what's the best time to plant petunias.
Okay, you're not
Now,
going to do that?
I know that.
You know that.
I know,
But that's why you're not
landscaping
going
guy.
to tell people, because
But-
you don't want everybody to know that.
You don't want
then we
everybody
would just
to
be in
know.
a petunia
Yeah.
city.
Yeah,
right?
begonias,
Yeah.
petunias. I mean, when I started the landscape, I didn't know the difference.
Right.
But there are the Landscaping for Dummies books, which are really good. But going back to your point there a little bit,
Did you understand the book when you?
well, if I read really slow,
right, it's pop up. Right?
it was kind of a pop up book.
Yeah.
Pop up, and they got these trees and different plants.
Uh-huh,
So that was really very, very helpful, actually.
I do want to talk about your book reading, though. Here in a second.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, at any rate, I try to make it relevant. It was interesting. About 3 weeks ago, I sent out something that was a little bit negative. As you can probably tell, I'm a very positive person, but I sent a deal out a little bit negative. It was on a nationwide showing
Okay.
housing had plunged
But it was true.
nationwide. Yeah, it's all numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
But housing had plunged nationwide 29%, and I used the word plunging.
Uh-huh.
And I had, about 15 people. I didn't know that 15 people even read my blog.
Yeah. Do they?
You know,
Maybe just that
I
day.
think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. But I got a lot of comments like, you know, if Bob Roberts is negative,
Yeah.
we got to head for
Who
the
is?
hills.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is
That's right. That's right.
This is not good.
Yeah.
Let's go to Europe
Let's get
for
our
a couple years or something.
Let's get our dry, frozen food and get out to the hills. And, bunker
We're
in.
done.
Huh? Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
So you send that out.
I send that out, and I get a lot of good feedback, and I get people that kind of challenge me on things. I get a lot of feedback that said thank you for sending this out. It's been a good thing, but it's one of the, whether you call it drip or marketing or whatever, but it's just an extra touch that people know. And I will say 99 times out of 100, it's very positive.
Yep.
It's very positive on Austin. But when you hear so much negativity, be it worldwide, nationwide, Texas-wide, Austin-wide, when you get so much negativity, it's just good to say, oh, you know something? 3.7% nationwide unemployment. Not that bad. 2.9% in Austin, Texas. Well, not that bad.
Well, and what percentage of that is where, I mean, I know that this is what I see and hear from my friends that have businesses. It's hard as hell to get people to come to work right now. I mean, it just seems that way.
I will tell you, not
especially
for us.
Trades.
Yeah.
Talking about trades, subcontractors, contractors,
right.
People that are working at, at shops, at storefronts. I mean, there are jobs out there.
There's no question.
Right. So, I mean, if it's saying 3.7, of that 3.7, half of them don't want to work. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my take.
We took a different approach during March. I saw Post Malone March 10th of 2020.
Okay.
I'm a big Posty guy.
Okay.
I mean, you probably don't get that by looking at
well,
me.
I can see, that's why you're wearing long sleeve.
That's
cover
where
up your tats. That's right.
Like I'm always tired right here, so right below my eyes.
Going to have your teardrop right here.
Teardrop, so, and that was the last big concert, before the pandemic. That was on a Tuesday. So, we kind of regrouped and got together and said, we're going to stay in the office. Unlike everybody else, we're going to stay in the office. We had two ladies that were over 80 years old, and we gave them the option to work from home or come to work. And they both decided to work from home.
Okay.
One lady called the next week and said, can I come back in? And we asked why. And she said, well, there's things worse than death.
Okay.
And
so
she
for
wanted
her,
to get back in.
Slow death because she wasn't around people.
She wanted to be around people. So we had one lady that came back, in March of the following year, or May actually the following year. So, we took a different approach. And as a result, we haven't had the battle that a lot of people have had as far as working from home versus coming to the office. So we've always been in the office.
Okay.
And, pretty much everybody in the company at some point in time did get COVID. Thank God that nobody passed away.
Yep.
But we took a little different approach. Now, I think your other comment about, 3.7 is nationwide, 2.8, 2.9% is Austin. So I think that's changing a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think, there has been, reductions in force, whether it's Meta, Facebook, or, it's going
Twitter.
to, Twitter, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll kind of shore some stuff back up where people will not say, I think, it's Friday. And they're always on Friday or Monday, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's sick Friday, Monday. It's a miracle
that
they're sick those 2 days.
It is a miracle that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no one gets sick.
Everybody is well those 3 days.
Rarefied. Yeah. But, to your point on that, before there was a Meta, there was a Facebook, right? Same company,
sure.
Right? But before there was a Twitter, there was no Twitter. Before there was an Amazon, there was no Amazon, right? So there are going to be companies coming down the pike a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now that are going to be front runners in their industries, and they're going to be game changers in their industries. And we are well positioned in this city to welcome those companies with open arms. And I'd like to touch on that a little bit as well, where the corporate windfall that we have had over the last couple of years, and partly that was because of COVID, people wanting to move to Texas, be in this market as opposed to other markets, and bringing their teams with them. A lot of it is tax related, whether it's the Californians, the people from the Northeast, escaping maybe some political viewpoints that they're not in agreement with, tax shelter opportunities that they have here, tax incentives. So touch on that just a little bit on what you have seen to this point and where you feel like that we're going in this city in particular.
Well, according to Mark Dotzer, who is he's not the guy at A&M Center anymore, but he's kind of one of the foremost economists nationwide. There are 1,000 people a day moving to Texas.
Moving to Texas or Austin?
Out of that 1,000,
Okay.
there are 180 people a day moving to Austin.
And is that net positive?
That's net.
That's net. Okay.
That's net. 180
Okay.
people a day net
To this city.
to this city.
Okay. Okay.
So-
Still.
Still.
Yeah.
And it's not going to stop. I mean,
Right.
it's people want to be somewhere, I think, where business is open
Yeah.
and business is full steam ahead.
Yep.
And let's figure it out and have more of an entrepreneurial spirit. You know, whoever said that you can tax your way to greatness was just flat out wrong.
Yeah. They weren't great.
You can't. They weren't great. They just
Right.
ended up paying a lot of taxes.
Uh-huh,
I
yeah.
mean, you can't. And this wealth tax on people in the top 1%. I mean, that San Francisco tried to implement. I mean, how many people in San Francisco want to move here?
Well, or have.
Or
Right.
already have.
Right.
I mean, they want to
Yeah.
because the taxes. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do that.
So you foresee Austin in particular and Texas, and I'm seeing the same thing, right? People want to be here, and those that have moved here, very few, if any, that I'm aware of that are in my circle have regretted it, right? And they talk within their circles, and you have the Facebooks of the world, right? Or the Metas, where they have a big presence here now,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And the Amazons and the others, that's going to continue. So I think that we're in a market that there's some sort of insulation and there's room for growth. I mean, Samsung just announced, several months back about what was the cost of that plant? It was a B, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's well over a B.
Yeah.
It's 2B, I think.
Wow. So for you during COVID, we all had extra time on our hands, but I know that you're an avid reader,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And you've actually turned me on to some great books. Thank you for that. But let's touch on that a little bit as well, because I think that if you're not continuing to educate yourself within your own industry or related industries or sales, books that are hyper focused on sales and being the best version of yourself. Tell me a little bit about that. And do you have a certain number of books? Do you have a goal? You seem like a goal setter. So tell me what's driving you in that arena.
I'm absolutely a goal setter. I mean, I'm on pace this year to do 63 books.
Okay.
My goal is
Not 62.
No, I'll do 63.
Yeah, I mean that must mean.
Yeah.
Well, now it is in December, so that means you've got one more book left, or what is that?
Well, no, I'm right at 60.
You're at okay.
But I've almost got one. I've almost got 2 done, and I'll throw another one in there
Okay.
by the end of it. But 60 is the goal.
Okay.
I do minimum 60 a year,
Okay.
so 5 a
60
month
books a
on
year.
average.
Are these audio books and physical books?
Both.
Combination
Yeah.
of the two.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a combo plate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'll do both. And I've done that for about 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm a voracious reader. I read incessantly, constantly.
Okay.
And I just love it. And so I'm about an 80% fiction,
Okay.
20% nonfiction. I like, investment books. I'm well over 100 books on investment advice and investment theory.
Okay.
But I will tell you, the best advice that I've ever seen is still from Warren Buffett, that said in the event that, to his wife that he passed away, put 90% in Vanguard 500 or Vanguard Index and, total
be just
stock market,
fine.
and you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
So, I think that's probably the best. In fact, I'm a Berkshire A and B holder, and I'll go Cinco de Mayo this coming year to hear he and hopefully Charlie Munger, who turns 99 January 1st
Wow.
of 23, he'll be 99, and the two of them sit up there and they talk
Yeah.
from 9:30 to 4 o'clock, and
Yep.
it's one of the most fun events of all time. So I'd recommend buying 2 shares of Berkshire B and go to the weekend in Omaha, because It's crazy fun.
Well, I'm sure the type of people that you end up meeting there, or that you get to know, if you meet them year over year. I mean, that's one of the things that I've heard about their shareholder meetings. is
Yeah,
that
and they
so
all
much
kind
of
of
it-
stick together.
They
They're all
do.
kind of same type of mindset.
Yeah.
So, but getting back to the books I read, I think the fiction is very important because the fiction, you have multiple characters, and it's just better for your mental capacity long term. We don't have that in the family or anything, but it's good to understand. You have to follow the story with multiple twists and turns, as opposed to if you read, John Quincy Adams or something. I'm making that up, but it's a different type of deal. So I just think that the importance of reading. If you get somebody that's in college or just out of college to get off of Call of Duty 4 and the younger kids off of Minecraft.
Yeah.
If you could get them off of that and just reading and reading and reading, they'll be, in my opinion, they'll be so much better down the road.
They'll be a better human being,
by
really.
reading.
Yeah. And it's probably harder, I would imagine, for the younger crew, because they've grown up with that, right? They've grown up with the phone in their hand and their head down and flipping with their, So, but I would agree, So you have me. My goal annually is 40 books, right? But my books are thicker than yours.
Yeah, you got thick books.
I'm all about how many pages, right?
Yeah.
Because I audiobook it. But I don't know if you do, but I do, audiobooks at like 2.5 to 2.7 speed of the normal reading. So I can fly through a book, and it helps me hyper focus on what's being said, right? So if I'm on a walk or if I'm on a flight, but I agree with you that I didn't do that for the longest time, because I would start to read a book and then I just fall asleep, man. I mean, it was like the best. If I ever wanted to take a nap, whether it was morning, lunch, or dinner, man, I just start a book, get one or two pages in. I'm like, I'm never going to finish. So I've gone the route of audiobooks with just a couple of physical reading books a year. But
your comprehension is a lot better than I, because I can't do the 2.
I don't
the
understand
2X.
that. Hold on, what?
Yeah, well, let me talk slower. But I can do like 1.1 to 1.25, depending on the narrator. But
that's right.
But
when they have the British accent, it makes it different.
Oh, that British accent, it can throw you off.
It can throw you off.
Yeah, no, there's no question.
Yeah, and is it bad, like if a dude is reading and he's got the British or the Australian accent? I go, man, that's hot.
That's bad.
Is that bad? Okay.
I think so.
I mean,
I think so.
Yeah.
But I mean,
but I wasn't sure. That's why I was asking.
Teach his own.
Okay, so I'll move on from
that.
To
me, that would be bad. Yeah.
So, but what isn't bad for you is the company that you keep, right? And so those that are in your sphere are critical mass for you, and you have like a core group of buddies that you've been close with and tight with for 40 years, right?
Actually, have a group of
almost half your life.
4 other guys. So there's 5 of us.
Yeah.
And we will communicate to each other at least on a daily basis.
Okay. Is that in a group setting?
It's just a group text.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we're back and forth, and it's and the I've known the one the least for 55 years, and the one I've known the most, I've known for 62 years.
Okay.
In fact, he was on a date with my wife when I met my wife. We were college roommates.
Okay.
Think about that.
At Texas?
At Texas.
Okay.
And so he was a punter for Texas.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it's just, and I was in his wedding, he was in my wedding. I mean, we're just lifelong buddies.
Yeah.
He was, 1 and I was 2 when we met. I mean,
so he was following up Erslager, huh? He came in behind Erslager or before him? Is that right? Or before him or after?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard.
But he wasn't a Ponzi guy.
Okay,
no, he was not a Ponzi guy.
He's a Ponzi guy in relationships.
Yeah, he's a relationship guy. Yeah, so now he ended up selling his company for $38 million, and the 2 of us are having this conversation.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder if Kristen, my wife, was like,
well,
maybe
you've got a great personality.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good point.
You can't put a price tag on that.
You cannot put a price tag.
And you shouldn't in your case, because then you wouldn't be the guy that sold the $38 million company. Right?
That's correct. That's correct. No.
Well, and I want to touch on that also, Bob, because if you look at this core group, these are your boys, and you haven't deviated from that, right? We may have 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 other people, and we'll go to dinner and we'll go to a game or something, right? And when we visit, when we catch up, it's like like we're best buds, because you treat people like that, right? But if we really drill down for this core group, what is it that you feel like that keeps you together, and really from the standpoint of Sounds like he's made it financially. I'm sure the others have done really well financially, but it's not just about the financial aspect of it. For you, it sounds like it's really about the human aspect of it.
It's the camaraderie and human aspect. And we have different, views on things, which is good. It's kind of a diverse group. They've all been business guys. One guy was Enron, kind of got burned by Enron, and he's kind of taken a little different route. But the other three have been very successful in their own, and they own their own businesses. All the other three own their own companies.
Okay.
And so there's if I need to, they can bounce information or ideas off of me. I can do the same with them. And there's no pretense. There's nobody saying, oh, what can I get out of this? There's none of that. There's no ulterior motive. We're just buddies that we have been for a long, long time. And so to have that great, group of people is completely awesome.
So there's the common theme in this crew that it's almost kind of like, military. You've got each other's backs.
Right.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Right.
No matter what.
So when you stole his girlfriend in college, he was able to overcome that.
Well, let's talk about that because there's a rule that we had. We were college roommates.
Yeah.
There was a rule that you could not overlap until you relinquished your rights.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is a very, very good rule.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And so he said, I said, you're going to relinquish your rights. He said, yes. I'm not getting anywhere, whatever that means.
I
have no idea what that means.
Are you getting anywhere?
Well,
did you get anywhere? I mean, it seems like you did.
A couple days ago.
Okay.
but he did say, yes. And I said, make no mistake, I'm calling her today. So I want to make sure you're okay.
Very clear.
So he relinquished his rights. I called her today. I knew from day one that that's who I wanted to marry. She realized that I was the one, I think maybe 3.5 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's taken a while.
It was right after the sale of that company, right? She goes, well,
the sale of the second company, yeah. It was, the first company was kind of still, but
only $10 million.
Every day I go home and I put the key in the lock and I turn it and I'm like, oh, yes.
Is that right?
That's a good thing. And my stuff's not on the lawn.
Yeah.
Most of the days.
Yep.
And so that's kind of that's a net positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that trust, right? It's knowing that those guys, that you have each other's backs in life, not only with your women, right? But also you brought up a really good point that 3 of them are still self-employed.
Right.
Right. And so that entrepreneur spirit that you have, even though you work for a W-2 employer, you're still an entrepreneur.
No question.
You're your own business.
There's no question.
Yeah. So you're branding Stuart Title, but you're branding Bob Roberts every day, right? And you're bringing it every day. And these guys also have to bring it every day.
Right.
So when they have their wins, you guys hear about it. When they have their challenges, you guys hear about it. And do y'all lean on each other? Like, what happens when someone's hit a wall, right?
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we constantly lean on each other.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, my wife's dad is on his deathbed.
Okay.
And it's imminent. I mean, it could be right. I mean, by the time I was in here, it could have happened. I mean,
thank you for coming today.
Oh yeah.
I knew
I mean, it is what it is, and he's in good shape, and I mean, he's in good shape on where he's going as far as I'm concerned.
Ready. I mean,
he's ready.
He knows.
He's ready to go.
Okay.
He's ready to go. So, I just put a little all points bulletin, last night. Hey, this is what's happening, FYI, and and just the comments that I got back from them, it's just really reassuring, and it's instant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's within 5 minutes, all 4 of them have responded.
Well, and that says a lot too, because and I know that when we text you, everybody's in the world with the phone in their hand with text. And me, when you and I text each other, unless it's a situation like this,
sure,
you're getting an immediate response. And
Absolutely.
there are guys and gals that you're like, hey, I know you read this. I know that you got this. I know that I'm needing a response at some point. But when you have it's almost as if you treat those relationships as if your life depends on it. And in a core group like that, sometimes it may. Your financial life, your spiritual life, right? And you need each other. And those relationships, I think the foundation of that for you've had those for many years. Not everybody has that luxury, Bob, right? So that's a blessing just in and of itself. And, but you have the ancillary relationships on top of that. And I'm gonna guess that may be in the hundreds for you. So how do you manage that on your other relationships that maybe aren't the core 4 or 5, right? Those that lean in on you for mentoring, for guidance, or those that you may learn from as well. How do you balance that?
Well, you're only given a certain number of hours in a day. Now, I will tell you that I don't need a lot of sleep, which is helpful.
Okay.
But it's just a question of making time for the people that you're around. I mean, my wife and I love to travel, and we've been in New York this past weekend. The week before was in Cuba. We travel with another family. We've been several different places, meaning Croatia, Italy.
Okay.
Greece, several different places this year alone.
Okay.
Bora Bora, et cetera, et cetera. So, we spend a lot of time with those people. So there's some other kind of what I would say core type groups. But over and above that, we do stuff continually with people. With the 3 boys that we have outside of the home, we just have more time to do stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's, it's not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
So, if you look at my schedule, a lot of people that particularly are my age probably would be tired by doing it.
Yeah.
And I get kind of invigorated.
Well, many would not even be here on this earth at your age.
Yeah, to be fair.
I mean,
that's exactly right.
Right.
Another thing, though, that I think is important with that other core group is that the save and except the one guy had bad experience at Enron, the other 3 have zero desire, and they're all in their 60s. We're all in our 60s.
Yeah.
They have zero desire to stop working. And I have zero desire to stop working.
Point well taken, because you and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so your mindset is, why would I stop working if I'm having fun? And you're in the people industry, right? And you love people, and you're driving business in the door based off your relationship. So if you retire, then what are you going to do?
I think it's tough for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people that are my age and maybe even older. I mean, there are people that are older than me that are actually still alive.
Yeah,
it's hard
to believe. Which is bizarre.
It's crazy to think about that.
Think about the advances of medicine.
There's no question about that.
Right.
But there's people that have retired, at 60 or 50 or 55 or 65 or 70, and the amount of deterioration that they go through in a
cognitive
really
deterioration
pretty quick period of time.
Yeah.
There's only so much golf you can play.
Yeah.
And then after that, the golf, stops being fun and becomes work.
Yeah.
So
you take it too serious.
Yeah. And so, and it's really not about the money. It's just, when you're having fun. Now I understand if you're in a job, you have a horrible supervisor and you have a horrible situation and you hate your work.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
It's different. Find something else that you like.
Find something else that you like.
Be a door greeter at Cabela's and Buda, So I just think that you ought to continue to work if you like it. I love what I'm doing.
You love what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, and you're Bob, you're in the people business, and that is your lane, and that's one of the things that I've really admired about you over the years is that you're uplifting, whether it's on a phone call or whether it's in person. You're incredibly personable. You've done a great job with your boys. We didn't talk about them today, but we will another time. But we have many times. I know how proud you are as a dad.
Oh, sure.
Of your boys, and they've all turned out fantastically amazing. Thank God for their mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, we'll know a lot more in 20 years on how they did.
That's right.
But
with their kids, their kids,
but over, and we'll get into it some other time.
Yeah.
But they're great kids.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, that says a lot about you. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on our show today. It's been an experience. It was everything that I expected that it would be, maybe a little more, right? But thank you, Bob. You're one of my heroes. I look up to you. My wife, I mentioned you to my wife. Whenever I told her that you were going to be on my show, she was tickled to death. And again, you are a trailblazer, not only in your industry, not only in your endeavors, but for those people that you touch and that you come in contact with. And I want to personally thank you for being amazing. And man, have a great day. Blessings to you and your family.
Well, I'm honored to be here on your show, and I think the world of you as well. Thanks, Steve-O. Appreciate it.
You got it, brother. All right.
All right.